positif à l'égard de nos mesures pour les travailleurs.
Donc, on a dit de rendre ça difficile pour vos adversaires de ne pas appuyer le budget.
Non, ben, je pense que moi, je fais ce qui est important pour les Canadiens et Canadiennes. On a eu un mandat fort. Et moi, j'ai dit, j'écoute les Canadiens. Les gens nous ont dit, puis là, c'est les travailleurs qui, évidemment, nous ont dit que ce qu'on a mis de l'avant, ça favorisait, évidemment, les travailleurs. Puis c'est au cœur de notre réponse économique. Tu sais, de dire que les travailleurs sont au cœur de notre réponse économique, c'est une très bonne chose. C'est ce qu'on veut faire, puis c'est ce qu'ils ont confirmé cette semaine.
Est-ce qu'on doit s'attendre à ce que vous leviez les tarifs sur les véhicules électriques?
Écoutez, ce n'est pas une décision qui m'appartient. Moi, je pense que notre devoir présentement, c'est de travailler fort pour défendre l'industrie de l'automobile, défendre les travailleurs, s'assurer, puis on a mis les fonds en place justement pour restructurer. Moi, je pense qu'une industrie d'automobile forte au Canada, ça sert l'ensemble du pays. Vous avez même vu qu'on a fait entrer le Québec dans l'industrie automobile. Alors moi, je pense que c'est une bonne chose. How are you doing?
Good, how are you?
It's good to see you.
You too. What does getting rid of the majority of counter tariffs on the U.S. mean for Canada's bottom line and that revenue you were expecting?
Well, we're adapting to changing circumstances. You know, these tariffs were made at the time as the response from Canada, but obviously we're adapting. As I think on the tariff side, I think you would have seen things change quickly. So we always need to adapt and review our posture. But the first and foremost, what we're doing is to support Canadian industry.
What sacrifices will Canadians have to make? What sacrifices will Canadians have to make in this budget?
Well, we're going to make generational investments. I think folks at home understand.
But the Prime Minister said sacrifices, so
no,
can you provide
I'm going to answer. I'm going to answer. But I was just saying, folks at home understand we're facing some headwinds. I mean, you know, people have seen in terms of you know, the uncertainty in the world and what's happening. They understand that we also have the fiscal capacity. You know, the International Monetary Fund was very clear about the fiscal capacity of Canada. They said that Germany and Canada stand out in the world. And they understand that in a time like that, we need to make generational investments. So that's what we're going to be making, because we need to build the Canada of the future. And at the same time, to spend less, you know, to put the house in order. That's what we're doing, the tough work that we have to do, the tough choice we're making. But this is going to be a moment for the nation. I think people understand this is not a transition, this is a shift that we need to make to ensure prosperity.
Est-ce que vous trouvez ça acceptable que l'ambassadeur américain au Canada insulte un représentant du commerce en Ontario à propos de la publicité là, de M. Ford?
J'ai pas vu.
Mais est-ce que c'est acceptable que l'ambassadeur insulte?
J'ai pas vu les commentaires. Vous savez, j'ai quelque chose.
Vous n'avez pas les CBC?
Ben, écoutez, j'ai un budget à préparer. Je suis un peu moins. Je vous écoute, je vous lis assez souvent, mais j'ai pas vu. Donc, avant de commenter, il faudrait que je vois les commentaires. Je les ai pas vus, honnêtement.
What sacrifices? Like specifically, where are you spending less? What sacrifices?
I think you'll have to wait. Are you going to be around on the 4th? I think you may have to wait.
Canadians are asking now. What kind of, and the Prime Minister has said there's going to be on austerity in this budget, so where is that going to be?
Well,
you're going to surprise Canadians on the
No, I've been very clear. No, I've been very clear. We've been talking and say we need to make choices. We need to make tough choices. We need to spend less so we can invest more. And at the same time, we need...
What sacrifices should Canadians
Well, listen, people understand that we need to do a number of things, make government more efficient, adopt technology. We need to make sure that we have a sustainable level when it comes to the public service. So all these things will be presented in the budget. But I think Canadians understand, first and foremost, Canadians understand that this is not business as usual. We're not in business as usual anymore. This is like 1945. We need to chart a new course for this country. We need to make sure we invest. We need to make sure we spend less so that, you know, this generation and future generation will have the infrastructure, will have the housing, will have the sovereignty and security that we need in our communities and our country to prosper. So people understand that. Trust me, I walk in the street and everyone stops me. They understand that this is a moment in time like we had probably like in 1945 where this nation together, we're going to be making choices that are going to make this country better.
Monsieur MacKinnon.
Bonjour.
Bon, élection ou pas élection?
Ben, vous allez me le dire.
Ben non, c'est vous qui allez nous le dire.
Honnêtement, c'est entre les mains de l'opposition. On multiplie les rencontres avec les représentants de l'opposition. Comme j'ai toujours dit, les principes, pour nous, c'est une fin de non-recevoir, mais les détails, c'est évidemment quelque chose qu'on peut discuter.
Un vote on division, est-ce que c'est envisageable de faire un vote on division?
C'est pas moi qui décide ça, Madame Buzetti.
What parties are you still negotiating with?
All of them?
All of them?
Yeah, well, I don't know if negotiating is the word, but we're certainly hearing.
Are there any meetings scheduled up until now to the budget?
There have been many meetings. The finance minister, the prime minister, as you know, has had several meetings. Others, in my own case, yeah, we continue to talk to the opposition.
What are you heading towards election in English?
Well, I don't know. That's up to the opposition. I mean, if you read what they say and listen to what they say, in the case of Mr. Poilievre, he didn't even put in his election platform the kinds of things that he's asking us to do, so it's a bit of a stretch to ask us to do things that not even he would propose as a matter of course in his own election campaign. So I think in the case of Mr. Poilievre, he's determined to try and cause a Christmas election, to perhaps, I don't know, maybe avoid the scrutiny that his party's giving him right now.
How willing are you to compromise to get this budget passed?
Well, I just said we're prepared. We're not prepared to negotiate on principles, but we are prepared to negotiate on details. And we're listening to all the parties in terms of what suggestions they might have. Ministers are meeting with all of the parties. I am. The Prime Minister has. So we're continuing to do the hard work that we know a minority government imposes on us. But frankly, what I'm finding is, particularly in the case of the Conservatives, they're asking us to support things they wouldn't even support themselves.
Des
baisses d'impôts. Il y en a suggéré. Il veut à peu près dénuer le gouvernement fédéral de tout revenu et il veut que le déficit soit contenu. Donc, vous allez lui demander quelle sorte de mathématiques il a apprises là où il a fait son cours de maths.
What details are you willing to compromise on? What details are you willing to negotiate on?
Projects, suggestions, any number of things that are consistent with things that are consistent with the things that we ran on.
What about the Conservatives' bill on intimate violence? Have you heard anyone talking about potentially supporting that too?
Well, we have plans for government legislation on intimate partner violence, and I think you'll find that those proposals are going to be pretty comprehensive.
L'ambassadeur américain qui a insulté un représentant au commerce de l'Ontario lors d'une cérémonie plus tôt cette semaine. Est-ce que vous trouvez que c'est acceptable que M. Hoekstra insulte comme ça des Canadiens, des politiciens canadiens, des représentants au commerce canadien?
J'en sais pas grand-chose, donc je...
Est-ce que vous pensez que
Well, Mr. Poilievre is suggesting essentially stripping all revenues from the federal government and asking for a smaller deficit. These are suggestions he didn't even make in his own platform, so I suggest a little bit, I think a little bit of scrutiny on that might be in order.
Is there any suggestion? Is there any?
Je ne sais pas si j'avais le récit des négociations. Ça s'appelle comment? Est-ce qu'il y a des négociations ou non? Pourquoi vous dites c'est pas au point d'être des négociations?
Je ne sais pas si je le caractériserai comme étant des négociations, mais certainement on est à l'écoute et on a des pourparlers, des discussions avec des représentants de toutes les oppositions.
Any suggestion that people would, if any of the parties suggested that perhaps they won't support the budget, but they will sit out the vote, or just not be there that day?
You'd have to ask them that.
Est-ce que la Banque canadienne va vous permettre d'aller chercher les appuis qui vous manquent pour le budget? Par exemple, le crédit d'impôt sur le personnel de soutien, ma compréhension, c'est que d'autres annonces prébudgétaires qui s'en viennent.
Ben, vous avez vu une annonce en la matière de la part du gouvernement.
Vous allez chercher l'appui de peut-être le NPD, le Bloc?
Ben, on fait ça parce que c'était dans notre plateforme.
Is giving the NDP more resources on the table to get their support for this budget?
Look, the NDP, I think, have made plain their request for that. You'll have to talk to them about
But is that on the table to get
I
their support?
I don't get to decide for. I want to be very clear about this. The government does not decide on alone on support
Est-ce
for
que vous avez entendu
opposition.
parler de cette demande-là? Est-ce qu'elle vous a été mentionnée à vous directement?
C'est clair que je l'ai entendu et c'est clair que c'est une demande qui dure depuis l'élection de la part du NPD.
What are your constituents telling you about an election?
Yeah, they know about the Christmas election.
We don't need one.
Yeah, but do you want one?
No, God, no.
No?
I don't think. I don't.
To make sure we don't have one.
We're going to table an excellent budget that Canadians will support.
There's no party that so far has given their assurance, at least not publicly. So what does that mean?
Well, look, this is the usual pre-budget posturing. You see it every single time. People are saying they're not going to support the budget. They don't even know what's in it. So let's wait and see what happens. These things have a way of working themselves out.
Russians are using Canadian rifles to kill Ukrainians. You got a lot of Ukrainians in Etobicoke. I wonder if you knew that, if you'd like to make some inquiries, some answers why Canadian rifles are being used by Russians.
I wasn't aware of that.
Just one question on the U.S. ambassador who had a reception really kind of yelled at an Ontario trade representative. What do you think of
Over
that?
that Ontario ad.
Yeah, for that Ontario ad.
I've heard that third hand and fourth hand. I don't actually know what he said, so I don't really think it's
What
appropriate to
does
comment.
it say about the state of the relationship between Canada and the U.S.?
I'm not going to comment on something I didn't hear. Well, I didn't hear what he said, so I can't tell you that.
Is Doug Ford right that it's actually better to not sign a deal at all if it's not a good deal? And from his perspective, it includes the other sector.
Well, I think you've heard the Prime Minister say he's not going to just take any deal. You're going to wait and get the right deal for Canadians. So.
Why do you think Canadians will have patience for that? It's been 6 months, we still don't have a deal. Like, why do you think Canadians will still be patient for that?
Let me ask you this question. If you sign a deal now that's not the right deal and Canadians are happy we got it done, and then 6 months from now they realize it's not a good deal, which of those two options do you think Canadians would prefer?
But Canadians don't know what was in the deal. We don't know what was on the table. Like, I guess, how long do you think Canadians' patience can last?
Well, I think Canadians elected us to make these decisions and enter into these negotiations, and I think in the long run they'll be proven right. And you just have to, look, it requires a lot of patience by Canadians, and we have different interests across the country, but I think in the long run we're on the right track.
What are your constituents telling you about a possible election? Do they support it? Do they see the need for it? What are you hearing from your constituents?
All I know about what my constituents told me was what they told me on April 28th. I haven't talked to them about an election since then. All right, thank you.
Les Canadiens veulent une élection?
Je sais pas, mais on sont aussi au sondage de la presse ce matin. On dit que 88% n'en voulaient pas, alors on va écouter ce qu'ils ont à dire.
Mais est-ce que vous craignez que le gouvernement tombe sur le budget? Parce que là, il n'y a aucun appui des partis d'opposition.
Nous, ce qu'on veut, c'est proposer le meilleur budget pour les Canadiens et Canadiennes. On se limite à ça.
Qu'est-ce que vous pensez du fait qu'il y a l'ambassadeur américain, lors d'une réception plutôt cette semaine au Canada, qui a insulté de façon très claire et directe un représentant au commerce du gouvernement de l'Ontario là, sur cette histoire de publicité ontarienne, etc. Est-ce que quand on est rendu aux insultes, vous trouvez que c'est acceptable?
Bien, tout le monde le sait, tout ce qui insulte est inacceptable. Mais on fait confiance à nos négociateurs, dont le ministre Leblanc, pour amener ça bien. Merci.
On a tirade, yelling, swearing at an Ontario trade representative at an event this week over the Ontario ad. Does that cross a line?
I'm not familiar with this report, so I'm not sure I'd be able to.
What are you hearing What are you hearing these days? We're hearing from the federal minister that it's hypothetical. They need time to review it. Alberta, clearly the government is looking for some kind of signal. What are you hearing from your constituents?
You know, I was door knocking on Sunday, and I'm hearing the same issues on the door we heard during the election, which is there's concern about the United States, our relationship with it, the desire to be energy secure. But I'm not hearing anything specific that's changed, I think.
What are your constituents telling you about a possible election? Did you hear anything about that on your doorstep?
No, again, it didn't really come up at the doors. I think it's a bit of an Ottawa conversation right now, but I don't get the sense things have fundamentally changed. Canadians expect us to get down to work. They want us to work together, and they certainly don't want to be back at the polls.
Are you concerned there's no deal, no negotiations going on with the other parties to get the budget passed?
Yeah, I mean, it's a minority government, and we always want to be having conversations and working together. Canadians gave us a strong mandate in order to bring transformative change, and, you know, there's always a moment in negotiations where people recede before they come together. I'm hopeful that's what we're seeing right now, and that people will come together for the betterment of Canada.
How comfortable are you hearing when you hear your own House leader talk about the risk of an election and other parties saying we're really not getting much negotiation? How comfortable are you with what the dynamic looks like right now?
Well, look, I'm always comfortable when the House leader is straight with us all. I think Canadians need to know the stakes and where we are. I think that there's been an awful lot of reach out to opposition parties. The Prime Minister has met with all of the leaders, and hopefully that bears some fruit.
On the climate competitive strategy, I'm just curious, what do you hope to see from it? What do you need to see from it?
I hope to see competitiveness, and I hope to see that we maintain our ambitions to 2050 net zero.
What about 2030?
Well, I hope that I can see all sorts of good things on that too. Thanks.
Doug Ford says that he'd rather not have a deal at all if it doesn't include the auto sector. Do you agree with that?
The largest private sector employer in my riding is General Motors, so I'll have to agree with them. I think the Prime Minister should get whatever deals he can, but in terms of overall trade, the auto sector is fundamentally important to Ontario.
Do you think the U.S. ambassador crossed the line when he insulted quite, crudely, Ontario trade representative at an event, over the Ontario ad?
Well, diplomacy doesn't usually involve insulting others. I'll leave that to our foreign affairs minister. But
so it's
I think
unacceptable for you.
I think there's a frustration on both sides. I think that's coming out. Hopefully this points to both sides being frustrated and both sides wanting a deal and getting it done. And I'm sure we've all said things under our breath that we've regretted later, especially when tensions are this high. But this is an important relationship for both countries, and hopefully we can see a deal get across the line.
The swearing at an Ontario trade representative cross the line for you?
I think swearing in general in this business crosses the line, and typically tends to be unprofessional and undignified. Not something that we usually see from diplomats, but again, this is high pressure, high tension, and hopefully we can see a deal.
Should he apologize?
I'll leave that to who he swore to, whether.
Do you think we're headed towards an election right now?
I can assure you that Canadians don't want an election right now.
So what's your House Leader kind of threatening an election unless opposition parties get on side?
Well, we've, as the House Leader has said, we've been presented a mandate to present a budget. I don't think Canadians want an election, and I think it's up to both sides to come together. Fundamentally, we are in a position to present that budget. At the end of the day, Canadians don't want that. If the opposition parties want to force that, they're going to risk Canadians blaming them for sending us to the polls in December.
Put something on the table here. Don't you, as the government, have to offer the opposition an incentive to vote for this budget?
Well, the incentives will be in the budget, and the incentive will be, do you want to go to an election? Fundamentally, that's going to be the decision that opposition parties are going to have to make at the end of the day.
Do you think this is a Prime Minister who wants to compromise? I mean, we keep hearing that the Liberals have such a strong mandate. How much does this Prime Minister want to compromise?
Well, that's a question for the Prime Minister. I know he's right now engaged in trade negotiations. That's something that's fundamentally important, and with their deal with the United States and getting a deal, it's all about compromise. It's working together. We have things we want to see across the finish line, and I'll leave that to the House Leader. Thank you so much.
Are you worried about
Are you hearing from your constituents whether they support the election or not? Is that just
absolutely not. No, I mean, we just had an election. I mean, I think it would be an insult to the Canadian people to be having an election again. I think we're tired of elections. We want a government that actually functions, and I think it would be very premature. And to have an election just because we can have an election, we don't like the government.
What do you make of what you've heard from your House Leader then, threatening an election unless opposition parties get on side?
Well, we're the government. We have to do what we're paid for, which is run the country. And is it our job to bow and scrape, to do everything we possibly can to get some party to join us? I think there's an obligation on the other parties as well.
The U.S. ambassador, witnesses say, was seen swearing at an Ontario trade representative over the Ontario
Who's he swearing
at? There's a camera right here. 1 second. So the U.S. ambassador was at an event this week, and witnesses say that he was swearing and went on a tirade about the Ontario ad to Ontario's trade representative for that. Does that cross the line for you?
He's entitled to his opinion. I would say maybe it indicates it was a pretty effective ad.
But are you worried about how that's
As we know, the President of the United States is quite temperamental. He got angry about it. I think he'll get over it.
But we were doing good up until that point. So
I think we're still doing good. I think he knows Canada's a tough. Well, I think we're obviously in the negotiating phase, and so I think there will be a deal. I think we're still on good ground, so I'm not hitting the panic button.
Écoute, on doit continuer d'avoir des bonnes discussions avec nos amis dans les États-Unis. C'est une situation difficile, un contexte difficile.
Mais c'est pas ça la question. La question, c'est la publicité.
Écoute,
Est-ce que vous pensez que c'est ça qui a fait une différence avec M. Trump?
Je pense que je peux savoir la réponse à cette question. J'ai aucune idée.
OK. Alors, est-ce que vous savez si le gouvernement ou si M. Carney a vu la publicité avant qu'il y ait...
C'est une question pour le premier ministre.
Une question concernant les interprètes. Les interprètes menacent de déserter le Parlement parce qu'on change les règles d'approvisionnement, donc la manière dont on va les payer, la manière dont on va gérer les interprètes pigistes. Les députés ont accès au service d'interprétation en direct. S'il n'y a plus d'interprètes pigistes qui viennent prêter main forte, est-ce que ça vous inquiète que ça arrive en janvier?
C'est la première fois que j'ai vraiment entendu qu'il y a des enjeux comme ça. Alors, c'est pas quelque chose que j'ai eu l'opportunité de comprendre.
Mais est-ce que ce serait grave qu'on manque d'interprètes pour les parlementaires?
Bien, on va toujours avoir des interprètes pour les parlementaires.
Donc, vous n'êtes pas inquiet?
Mais on va toujours avoir. C'est nécessaire. On a 2 langues officielles. Ça ne va jamais changer. Mais j'ai pas plus d'ajouter.
Mais il menace de boycotter le Parlement, de ne plus travailler au Parlement en raison des règles de rémunération, notamment.
Je n'ai pas plus de détails à propos de ces règles, mais si la question en général, c'est si on va avoir une nécessité des interprètes, ben oui, certainement, toujours.
Do you think your constituents want an election?
No.
No. So are you worried at all about at the budget right now? Mr. MacKinnon keeps saying we don't have the votes, we might not be able to pass this thing.
Yeah, well, I mean, you know how it works. It's a minority government, so a budget will be presented in the very near future. Parliamentarians will have an opportunity to review that budget and make a determination. Obviously, our hope is that we will have the support of opposition parties. We have a mandate, a very strong one, from the people of Canada that was given to us not very long ago. We are at a very critical moment in terms of the future of the country right now in rapidly changing geopolitical contexts. Stability in Parliament is key, and I'm confident that we're going to have a budget that I think will help Canadians advance the interests of the country in a way that they expect us to, and hopefully the opposition will be there to support us.
Est-ce que je peux vous poser la même question en français? Dans le contexte de la guerre commerciale avec M. Trump, comment verriez-vous la perspective d'une élection?
Bien, écoute, c'est vraiment important d'avoir stabilité. Il n'y a aucune question. Alors, c'est une décision pour l'opposition. S'il veut l'appui de budget, je comprends que c'est difficile de savoir en avance, de voir le document propre. S'il y a des choses concernant pour l'opposition, ils vont bien sûr trouver des choses où ils ne sont pas contents.
Mais vous dites la stabilité, mais quand on a eu l'élection au printemps, on avait déjà Trump, on avait déjà des tarifs. Qu'est-ce qui est différent? Pourquoi cette élection-ci serait plus déstabilisante que celle d'avril?
Non, c'est pas que j'ai dit que l'élection. C'est important d'avoir de stabilité dans le Parlement. Si on a une élection, ça veut dire que toute l'énergie, c'est vers l'élection et pas les discussions avec les Américains. Bien sûr, on sait que s'il y a une élection, les discussions continuent avec le ministère, avec des ministres, etc. Mais c'est quelque chose où toute l'énergie est maintenant vers une élection et pas vers les grandes responsabilités qu'on a dans la Chambre de continuer le travail pour le pays. Ça fait de sens? Je sais pas, mon français, c'est toujours...
On vous a compris.
OK, merci. C'est le faux de Blue Jays. J'ai eu comme 4 heures. J'ai dormi seulement 4 heures à cause des Blue Jays.
Les députés du MPD vont trouver quelque chose qui vont lui plaire. Est-ce que vous pensez que c'est votre seule avenue pour faire de ça?
Non, il y a d'autres partis. Il y a les conservateurs, il y a les MPD, il y a le Bloc. Il y a plusieurs options.
M. MacKinnon, lui, il dit les conservateurs, ils disent déjà qu'ils veulent voter contre, le Bloc aussi. Vous n'avez pas la même lecture de la situation?
Bien, j'ai aucune idée. Les partis vont voir le budget, puis ils vont décider s'ils veulent appuyer le budget.
Le Parti libéral pourrait aller chercher d'autres députés aussi.
Comme
dans d'autres partis.
Deux députés des autres partis.
Elle va au courant d'efforts en ce sens-là.
Yeah.
Mais est-ce que vous êtes au courant d'efforts dans ce sens-là?
C'est pas moi qui ben, écoute, j'ai des bonnes relations avec mes amis dans le Parti conservateur, l'NPD et le Bloc. Je suis toujours content d'offrir des raisons positives pour nous joindre dans le caucus libéral, mais je suis pas sûr que ça va donner. Mais écoute, des fois, avec des budgets, c'est pas extraordinaire d'avoir des députés qui décident, en particulier dans un parlement minoritaire, de l'offre de support le gouvernement pour assurer qu'il y a de stabilité. Je pense que c'est important d'avoir de stabilité.
Vous dites en ce moment, vous avez des discussions pas pour nécessairement aller chercher.
Non, c'est
sur le budget.
Non, c'est juste de dire.
Sur le budget.
C'est de dire, écoute, c'est un bon budget. Je suis confiant que c'est un bon budget.
Vous l'avez pas vu, non?
Non, mais je sais que ça va être un bon budget. Puis, c'est toujours juste de dire que, écoute, c'est quelque chose d'extrêmement important pour le pays qu'on continue dans une direction positive. On a besoin, comme je viens de dire, on a besoin d'avoir de stabilité. Certainement en cause de nos relations avec les États-Unis, mais juste au cause de qu'est-ce qui arrive tout le monde. Alors, c'est une décision toujours pour l'opposition. Si on va présenter un projet, on va donner notre support, et si le Bloc, l'NPD et les conservateurs décident non, c'est à ces partis-là d'aller parler avec les citoyens du Canada et dire c'est de cette raison-là qu'on a décidé qu'une élection est plus importante que la stabilité.
Okay.
Merci.
Your tweeted on snipers are killing Ukrainians with Canadian rifles. Russian snipers are using Canadian rifles to kill Ukrainians. Do you have some thoughts about that?
Any violations of our Import and Export Act, Permits Act, will be taken extremely seriously. We have one of the most advanced systems for export controls relating to military goods in the world, and we will be monitoring and taking these types of claims very seriously. I'm actually looking into this issue and others right now, but I'll leave it at that for now.
Madame la ministre, est-ce que vous avez un message pour Israël qui a continué les frappes en ce moment?
Nous continuons d'appuyer le processus pour le paix. On doit avoir un cessez-le-feu aussitôt que possible. Il y a un plan pour le paix sur la table. Nous espérons que tout le monde va respecter le plan. C'est important d'avoir un cessez-le-feu. C'est important, c'est crucial d'avoir un processus pur pour l'aide humanitaire et aussi pour la masse de n'a pas aucun rôle dans la situation dans l'avenir.
Est-ce que vous reconnaissez que cet accord de paix et le respect de ces normes, c'est fragile là, en ce moment? Est-ce que
c'est très fragile, je m'excuse. C'est très fragile. Et ça, c'est le point crucial ici. Le paix est fragile et il y avait un processus avec les pays arabes et les États-Unis pour le paix. Et on a vu ça quand j'étais à l'ONU, par exemple. Maintenant, il y a une question, qu'est-ce qui va passer dans l'avenir? Et la situation humanitaire est cruciale. On doit continuer de voir le retour des otages. Le Hamas n'a pas un rôle dans la situation, pas du tout. Et on doit continuer de travailler pour les réformes après un cessez-le-feu, les formes électorales, pour la démocratie, par exemple, pour les programmes sociaux.
Quelle est la part de responsabilité?
C'est très important.
Quelle est la part de responsabilité d'Israël dans le retour des
Comme j'ai dit au début de ces remarques ici, on doit voir un processus pour respecter le plan pour le paix. Ça, c'était un plan, tout le monde était en accord avec ça et le Canada veut veut voir le paix dont...
Madame Anand, c'est juste sur l'Ontario. Sur l'Ontario, les remarques de M. Hoekstra, vous étiez à la cérémonie lundi soir. Est-ce que vous trouvez que c'est acceptable qu'il ait insulté un représentant du commerce ontarien?
I know that my colleague Dominic LeBlanc, je sais que Dominic LeBlanc travaille très fort sur ce dossier-là.
Mais est-ce que c'est acceptable, ces commentaires?
Je voudrais, et nous voulons voir un accord quand nous pouvons l'obtenir.
Mais pourquoi vous n'avez pas commenté?
In English.
Witnesses say he yelled, he swore at the Ontario's trade minister over the Ontario ad. Does that cross the line in your opinion?
I didn't actually see the ambassador. This is the American ambassador in Canada? Yeah. I didn't catch what he said, but it obviously did hit a nerve with some in the United States. And what's important is for us to have ongoing discussions and trade negotiations. And we want to make certain that the public also appreciate what's at stake, both in the United States, and here in Canada. So I'm always a big supporter, a big promoter of full information. And the ad's getting a lot of play, primarily because of the president. So I would caution everyone to be sober-minded, and there's a lot at stake, and we need to have open discussions and ongoing negotiations with the president, and we have to respect what they're doing. I mean, at the same time, he's fighting for America. We got to fight to protect Canada.
Is Doug Ford right that it's better to not have a deal at all with the U.S. unless it includes the auto sector?
Well, the auto sector is critically important to Ontario, and all of Canada for that matter, but primarily in Ontario. And remember, Ontario and the federal government, years ago, back during the financial crisis, we stepped up and we helped GM, we helped Ford, we helped a lot of those automakers succeed and survive the crisis that was happening both in Canada and the United States. We played our part, we helped out. I think we are known to be trusted partners, and we need to proceed to be respected as such. And I think it's important that we include the auto sector in our negotiation.
And energy allocations are a provincial issue, as you know. So just in terms of what allocations they make.
Essentially, swore and used explicit language about Doug Ford's anti-tariff ad. So I'm just wondering, do you think that's a sign of how our relationship is sour with the U.S.? Can we get back on track? Are you worried?
Look, I mean, there clearly have been some bumps in the road, but I would say I think there's good faith, certainly on our side. I think there's good faith at the end of the day on their side. We need to get to some kind of an arrangement. It's good for the Americans, it's good for Canada, and we just need to be careful not to overreact. So. Well, I think my hope is that it actually builds upon a lot of the work that's been done over the past few years, which really says that addressing climate change can actually be good for the economy. It can actually help to create jobs and economic opportunity and put Canada in a position to export around the world. Canadians need to understand that the world continues to move with respect to climate change, even in an era where the Americans have decided not to move as quickly as they had been. Most of the investment in energy is going into renewables, and Canada needs to be part of that, so I hope to see a lot of emphasis in that.
On the Ring of Fire deal in Ontario, Doug Ford just said that the only thing standing in the way is the federal government now. What do you say to that?
I mean, Doug Ford likes to blame his problems on other levels of government. That's pretty typical. I mean, I think he needs to also take responsibility. But look, I mean, this is something that the federal government is interested in supporting. And so I think that there are lots of conversations that need to keep going. But of course, you know, that is a major opportunity for Ontario. It needs to be done right. It needs to be done in consultation and with the support of First Nations and the communities there. But pretty typical of Doug Ford to try to blame things on other levels of government instead of taking responsibility.
Doug Ford also says that he'd rather no deal at all with the U.S. than a deal or negotiations right now that don't include the auto sector. What do you think of that?
Well, look, I mean, as an Ontario MP and someone who's from Burlington, Ontario, where we look to our west and see steel mills, and to our east we have the Ford
assembly plant. We need to ensure that we are protecting the auto sector. That being said, we need to continue these conversations with the United States. I mean, people in my community and communities across Ontario and across the country are relying on all levels of government to be constructive partners here. I understand where he's coming from, and look, I'll be the first to say that we need to have a strong and vibrant auto sector in Ontario. That is fundamental and it is foundational, but let's not throw the baby out with the bathwater. Let's make sure that we are having constructive conversations where we are protecting our auto workers, our auto sector, but also ensuring that those tariffs on steel and aluminum, on lumber are ideally we're getting rid of them because those industries are facing a crisis.
L'ambassadeur américain au Canada, M. Hoekstra, a insulté un représentant du commerce du gouvernement ontarien lundi soir sur justement la publicité de M. Ford. Est-ce que vous trouvez que ça va trop loin quand un ambassadeur américain insulte un Canadien comme ça?
Voilà, ce qu'on espère, c'est des bonnes relations entre les deux pays et la diplomatie, c'est toujours un travail qui est délicat. Moi, j'espère qu'on peut, comment on dit ça, like cool down relations. I mean, to increase them and augment them is not going to help anyone. Alors, c'est à nous tous d'assurer que nous avons plus de sang-froid et que nous retournons à une relation qui est productive et constructive. Augmenter la température n'aide personne. Look, we have to make sure that we're standing up for ourselves, that we're protecting Canadians, but at the same time, this is more than just an interpersonal relationship. This is a relationship between millions of Canadians and millions of Americans, and we need to make sure that we always put that at the forefront and that we are ensuring that the people whose jobs are on the line right now are the people that we are thinking about. Let me just tell you a little story here because, I was visiting I stopped by a local sub shop in Burlington to pick up dinner for my family a couple weekends ago, and it's in a working class neighborhood. It's steel workers, it's auto workers, and I asked him how business was going. And he said, look, business is down 25% because people are uncertain about their futures. And so let's make sure that everything that we are doing right now is focused on protecting the jobs and the livelihoods of Canadians. What kind of sacrifices do you think you're considering?
Sorry, I completely missed that. I missed the beginning of the game. I was working last night.
So. It was not last night. It was game 2, I believe, or the first game. And he said the NBA All-Star games a few years ago. What do you make of him saying on native land?
So I haven't seen this. Let me get back to you.
Thank you.
Get back to you. On the climate competitiveness strategy that's coming out with the budget, I'm just curious, what do you need to see in it to continue supporting the government?
I'm part of the government.
Well, I know, but I mean, but someone like yourself who's a staunch climate supporter.
I think, clearly climate change continues to be an important issue. I can't comment on what might or might not be in the budget. Obviously, like you, I'm very eager to see what will be in it. But the industrial carbon pricing is a key component of our climate change strategy. It is really the backbone. And for those who would have forgotten, it gives us 3 times more emission reduction than the consumer carbon pricing. So eager to see what will be in the budget. Ça s'en vient. Je dirais que certainement 2 des 3 règlements, on va les avoir dans les prochaines semaines. Et le 3e...
Il y a des choses de la rentrée aussi. Les semaines,
c'est des semaines. Non, c'est des semaines. Ça s'en vient. Merci beaucoup. Merci.
Is Doug Ford right that Canada shouldn't be negotiating a deal with the U.S. unless it includes the auto sector, and that no deal is better than a deal without the auto sector?
So, I'd really rather talk about the Forever Canada petition because I think that this sends such a loud message, not just to Albertans, but to the rest of Canada, that Alberta is a place that's secure, that Alberta is a place where we love our great country and also our wonderful province.
One question. Okay, yeah, just one last question. Do you need a pipeline for Alberta and Albertans to feel Canadian? Is a pipeline necessary to keep those sentiments that you were just describing alive?
My view is that Alberta is as entitled as any other proponent to bring forward an idea with respect to a project of national interest. And if that's a pipeline, the Prime Minister has been really clear that that's something that we'll consider. And, there are some Albertans that are of the view that a pipeline is important. Again, it's my role as regional minister is to make sure that all projects that
No. She came to do a statement.
We're talking about Alberta. Does Alberta need to have this pipeline listed as a national interest project?
Well, I think, again, Alberta is as entitled as any other proponent to add their project to a list. Are you advocating for this as the minister representing Alberta? As a regional minister for Alberta, my job will be to advocate for any proposals that the province may have.
Are you advocating for this pipeline?
Do you agree this is a national
Are you advocating for this
We'll actually see what comes out of the group, and we'll make a decision.
What do you make of this MOU the government is working on with Alberta when it comes to addressing these 9 bad laws and the fact that Ms. Smith wants C-48? What's your understanding of what the government's deal is?
So I'm not going to comment on it right now. I don't know if that's real to do it.
Monsieur House-Father, concernant les interprètes au Parlement, ils menacent de déserter le Parlement parce que le gouvernement change les règles, entre autres au niveau de la rémunération. Est-ce que vous craignez qu'il y ait des répercussions pour le bilinguisme au Parlement si les interprètes quittent en janvier?
Je ne vois pas une situation où les interprètes vont quitter. On a besoin de tout le Parlement d'être bilingue toujours. Bonne journée.
Interprètes, on change les règles d'approvisionnement pour les interprètes, pigistes. Certains menacent donc de ne plus travailler pour le Parlement parce qu'il y a entre autres une politique du plus bas soumissionnaire, il y a aussi toutes sortes d'autres règles qui changent. Est-ce que vous craignez que le bilinguisme en prenne un coup à partir du mois de janvier en raison du changement de ces règles?
Mais je suis toujours préoccupé par le sort de nos interprètes parce qu'ils font un travail exceptionnel pour nous. Il faut avoir des interprètes qualifiés pour travailler ici au Parlement. Ça, c'est tellement important parce que le niveau d'interprétation doit être toujours excellent. Je sais, c'est difficile en tant qu'ancien président. C'était toujours difficile de créer un plus large bassin d'interprètes parce qu'il faut faire la formation, il faut faire des tests, il faut comprendre avec les gens qui vont prendre leur retraite. Alors, il y a toujours comme un qui rentre et un qui sort. C'est dur. C'est complexe.
Mais comment on trouve une solution, là, parce que là, on change les règles, puis là, eux, ils menacent de juste plus travailler au Parlement?
Je ne sais pas, mais une chose qui est importante, c'est de travailler en coopération avec les interprètes pour trouver une bonne solution.
Mais c'est pas un syndicat, les interprètes, ils sont pigistes, vous comprenez?
Même avec des pigistes, il faut travailler avec les gens parce que le besoin est criant pour avoir des gens qui sont bien formés pour interpréter nos mots.
Et la majorité de l'interprétation se fait de l'anglais vers le français, donc vous avez des collègues francophones. Est-ce que les francophones vont manger la claque finalement au Parlement?
Impossible. Et moi, je vais toujours là pour s'assurer que ce développement n'arrivera pas.
Merci beaucoup.
Ça m'a fait toujours plaisir.
Bonne journée. Concernant les interprètes, ils menacent de quitter le Parlement, les interprètes pigistes, parce qu'on change les règles d'approvisionnement. Est-ce que le bilinguisme risque d'en prendre un coup à partir du mois de janvier si on manque d'interprètes?
Il n'y aura jamais une baisse de régime pour notre part quant à l'usage des langues officielles dans les instances du Parlement du Canada.
Évidemment, M. Grandmaître était une force tranquille de la francophonie. J'ai eu l'opportunité de le rencontrer il y a quelques mois, justement pour lui donner l'ordre du mérite de la médaille Charles III. C'est un homme qui nous apprend qu'il faut continuer à protéger nos droits, mais aussi continuer à faire plus pour la francophonie. Donc, je vais continuer à faire mon travail.
Qu'est-ce que vous retenez de vos interactions avec lui?
C'est un homme qui était à l'écoute. Une force tranquille, comme je dis, il ne levait pas le ton. Hein? Il y avait toujours une façon de faire les choses. Alors, Monsieur Grand-Maître, on le tient à cœur, puis évidemment mes condoléances à la famille. Merci.
I've got to ask you about the behavior about the U.S. ambassador. He was reportedly being dressed down, Ontario's representative at the National Gallery, supposedly using very strong language, including the F word. Is this diplomatic behavior? Is this worth a summoning, a démarche, as they call it in diplomatic language?
We have not démarched the U.S. ambassador, and I know that this file is being handled very well by my colleague Dominic LeBlanc.
But is it worth summoning?
The Canadian technology has been apparently gone through Hong Kong shell companies and onto the battlefield in Russia. Is that acceptable to you, and what are you doing to fix it?
We have one of the strongest export control regimes in the world. Countries from around the world come to ask us about how we have formulated this legal regime under the Import and Export Permits Act. In terms of your specific question, if there is any violation of that act, we will make sure that the suppliers are held accountable.
Okay. Are you
Is summoning the ambassador on the table?
Are you looking
Is
into
that
it?
on the table? Is summoning the ambassador on the table?
Well, I know that everybody's in Jays mode. I'm certainly in Jays mode. Last night was super, super exciting, so congratulations to every Jays fan. But today is 100 days until the Winter Olympics in Milano Cortina, so I know everybody that's training for a spot on that team or to compete for Canada at the Winter Olympics in Milano Cortina knows that today's the 100 days out. I'm certainly counting down the days as well. But just to say that our government is fully behind our Olympians and Paralympians preparing for the Olympics and Paralympics in Italy. We're so excited. There's a lot happening with the unveiling of the uniform and lots of teams over the coming weeks. So just wanted to say, in addition to Go Jays Go, Go Team Canada Go.